fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Every day, Mark fights retinitis pigmentosa, a blinding retinal disease.
Don't record it with that underage.
Even while his vision is taken, his family gives him hope.
Man, these guys are...
Because whether he's helping run their business or enjoying time at home with his wife and sons, Mark knows he's not fighting alone.
Yeah, you get on all these stories and stuff.
The Foundation Fighting Blindness has funded research into treatments and cures for blinding diseases, providing fighting vision loss, and our nationwide community of local chapters.
Are we recording on here yet?
And support for people with vision loss, as well as their loved ones. Because the best way to fight against blinding diseases is to fight together. And for Mark, winning the fight against vision loss means being there for his family. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Learn more about how you can help us end blinding diseases at fightingblindness.org.
30 seconds. Hi, I'm Kelsey Grammer. Wounded Warrior Project supports injured veterans by connecting them with fellow warriors, by serving them through mental health and wellness programs, and by empowering them to live on their own terms. No one should face a battle alone. Join us at woundedwarriorproject.org.
For Lachi, winning means using her voice to bring hope to others with vision loss. The Foundation Fighting Blindness is committed to funding research to end blinding retinal diseases. The Foundation Fighting Blindness. Together, we're winning. Learn more at fightingblindness.org.
WWDB. When it comes to talk radio, others may try, but no one comes close to WWDB. Nobody does it better.
Good afternoon, Greater Philadelphia area. This is Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. And we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we have got a boatload of topics to cover today, following a 52-week low in interest rates and seeing if buyers actually care that the rates have come down and what the statistics say. We've also got some very controversial comments from the CFA, and some Michigan agents have now sued NAR. Did you see this? This is about... it's an antitrust settlement. They're suing their association. So a lot of stuff going on with this NAR lawsuit and some recommendations coming out. And then lastly, we're going to be talking about the new Zillow CEO. That was a little shocking to me. They named a new CEO last week, and some comments from the outgoing CEO, Rich Barton. So we'll unpack all that next. If you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to hit subscribe to the channel, click on the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team about how this impacts your real estate decisions, you can do that with the link in the comments. So, Sarah, we saw a 52-week low in interest rates last week.
Woohoo!
Great news. A lot of it had to do with that jobs report and some other things that happened. Did your clients actually care that you're working with? Was there a noticeable impact on some people's intent, or tell me what you saw after communicating that all to the folks that are out there?
Honestly, not really. I mean, they were all excited to hear it. They were happy for the news, but I don't think that it made a major impact on their search. A couple people had questions that I was able to kind of like break down and answer for them, but overall, like, everybody was excited to hear it. I don't know that it was enough to move the needle for them to be like, all right, I was on the fence and now I'm not,
So what was that related to? Obviously we're talking about anecdotal and case studies here. Was it because they couldn't find what they're looking for? Like, tell me, what was some of their reasoning behind it? I mean, maybe it's because it's the middle of August. I mean, that could certainly be a factor as well.
Yeah, I think in most cases it was, had the right house been like popped up, this would have been icing on the cake for them to move forward, but the right house just wasn't there.
Well, that really demonstrates something that you've said on the show a lot, which is timing the market isn't usually what drives people's decision making. So right. That's pretty interesting, knowing the client load that you're carrying. So to give some perspective here, what we saw with the week ending 8/11, and this is for the entire Bright MLS service area, which is DC, Virginia, Pennsylvania, obviously, South Jersey, Delaware. We saw an uptick of new purchase contracts. They were up 3.7% compared to the same week last year, and they were down 0.6% compared to the previous week. So that kind of hybrid week of July and August earlier this year. We saw new listings dip 7.8%, but they were up 3% compared to the same time last year. So week to week, they were down. Year over year, they were up. So it's kind of telling the same story that you're telling when you're seeing that. And Altos Research and Housing Wire, I mean, they had a pretty interesting take on this because they talked about nationally the total inventory perspective, and they haven't seen a big pickup in demand the past couple weeks. And they were a little surprised. And they had even mentioned in this article they put together that they expected a measure of some pickup in demand with cheaper money. And they attributed it to two things. So I want to get your feedback on this. One, rates haven't fallen enough or stayed there long enough. So it's just kind of like, is this going to be a blip, or are they going to bounce back and kind of jump up again?
Mhm.
Or they haven't been there long enough. Or the other reason is because there hasn't been any pickup in demand because of the seasonal timing. So what do you think about those two reasons that they're attributing the pickup in demand and the pickup in inventory?
Yeah, I mean, I think they both make sense. The interest rates is, I mean, that's always positive when you see them come down here, if you're a buyer, but it hasn't crossed a threshold that like it's broken into a different percent yet. So I feel like when you can break down into the numbers, hey, this is what your savings is between these seemingly close together interest rate numbers, then it does feel a little bit bigger. But I've noticed it tends to be when it crosses like a bigger barrier, if you will, that people start to be more excited about it and maybe have that be a little bit more of a push for them.
Well, I agree with you there. I mean, and what we see sometimes is like you'll see mortgage companies, they advertise these rates where it's like the perfect scenario. Like they have an 800 plus credit score and very low debt to income ratio and all these different things. That's not attainable for a lot of folks.
Right.
And I think that can be a little misleading sometimes. So I tend to agree with you there. And keeping current matters. You remember that chart they showed where it's like what happens at 6, 6.5, 7? Well, once you get below 6.5 consistently, and the low was like 6.4. I mean, that was the national number from Mortgage Rates Daily, even though we saw some lower local quotes. If it was like closer to like 6, I'm clear we would see a lot of people jump back in. Now, if they also rates stay here, I would anticipate a pretty robust like post-Labor Day market because you've been in the office, the past couple weeks. I've been there too. There's a lot of people away right now. I mean, it's just a high vacation season because school's already starting for some folks. But I mean, back to school is a real thing, and that kind of this is like that last minute vacation time that a lot of people take. And you figure some of the folks that are moving, they got little kids and they're trying to upsize, so that could certainly be a factor as well with the seasonal flow. So I'd be interested to see what happens if they stay this low. I think that's going to be the kicker here.
Right. And I think that's maybe what some people are waiting for as well before getting like too excited about like, okay, great. And then if they get out there, start searching, the right house isn't there. And then it goes in the other way.
So I agree with you on all that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. So Altos, they broke down 4 factors here: inventory, pending home sales, home prices, sale prices, and then a fifth one, price adjustments. So I want to get your reaction to each of these statements relative to why we're not seeing the demand with lower rates. So as of yesterday, we had roughly about 693,000 single family homes on the market. That's a 1.3% increase for the week, and almost 41% more homes on the market than last year, which is incredible. And we're seeing about 23% locally is the number that we're charting right now. So there's the national numbers and the local numbers. And because of that, rising rates slowed home buyers near the end of August last year, and inventory rose a little faster. The previous year's inventory was rising 1% to 2% of the week over week through the end of October. So they're predicting we haven't hit peak inventory for this year. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that could certainly be the case. And I know I don't like to weigh too heavily on the fact that it's an election year, but I think that could also like contribute to some people. Although that could kind of hit it both ways, like not wanting to move forward yet on the buy end and maybe not wanting to list it yet on the sell end. So then that's kind of a wash.
Yeah, and the election thing is interesting because I've been through a number of these. I know you have too, and nothing. It just creates like paralysis when
Mhm.
it comes to the election, because people are, well, if this person gets elected, then everything's going to go bad. And if this person gets elected, it's going to be great. And the reality is, the presidential election, that particular person, I mean, they don't make all the decisions. They got to go through Congress and all this
Right.
other stuff. And that takes forever. I mean,
Oh,
these
yeah.
people are very slow to do anything. So I tend to agree with you there. I think that'll be interesting to see what happens. Locally, what we're seeing is that new listings are up 3% compared to a year ago. And we saw the number of active listings. So this is supply. This is the number you really want to pay attention to, in my view. It's up 27.6% compared to last year in the entire Bright MLS. So that's regional. And it's up 0.3% compared to last week. Usually you don't see listings rise the second half of August. So I would anticipate we see more listings come to the market, and we're going to see another pop in the fall here. And then maybe December is when things kind of slow down a little bit. That's at least me. That's my prediction here. So it seems like we're on the same page there when it comes to inventory. So let's talk about the home price number here. So sales are down year over year in terms of number of homes that are transacting. I don't think we're going to see that number increase at all. Inventory is climbing. So supply's up, demand's down. Wouldn't that imply prices are falling? But we're seeing the exact opposite. Prices are up about 7% locally year over year. We've seen that prices increase nationally as well. Do you see prices going the other way at all as we head into the second half of the year, or really like the third quarter is what we're talking about, since we're at the very beginning of that now?
No.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, like nationally, there could be some pockets that maybe that happens, but here locally, I do not see home prices falling at all.
Were you at that meeting we had, the brokerage meeting?
Yeah.
Last week? I mean, there was an agent in the room, not part of our team, and they said, "Oh, well, what happens when the market crashes?" And I was disgusted with that comment, because there's no data that backs it up. I mean,
Right.
it's like, I think I said not going to happen, and I just like kind of, because there's so much data that backs up prices aren't going anywhere until we see inventory come up substantially.
Right.
And if that happens, that means like people are losing their jobs. Like there's not a lot of good, the economy's not going well. So I don't think that's something you want to root for as an agent.
Right. Because I mean, even if we head into a territory of a more balanced market,
Mhm.
that still doesn't mean prices drop.
I agree with you totally. And any agent that's telling you prices are dropping, unless in this market, in the greater Philadelphia area, because other markets are different.
Mhm.
They don't know what they're talking about. And
Right.
and you if you're a consumer, you've got to go find another agent, because that's just bad information. So
Right.
I was what was your reaction when that was happening? Because I was pretty quick to, and I'm not one to do that normally, but it was such a ridiculous comment based on the data.
Well, I was just kind of like, it almost seemed like a role play of a client, you know?
Well, I would have
being
been
like,
much nicer to a
well,
client.
no, I know. But like,
Can you imagine if would you ever?
no, no, but it was just kind of like coming from an agent who I think has been in the field for a while, and
Yeah.
and was saying he's seen some of these like cyclical things going around, but like that goes against everything that all of the data has supported for, as long as I've been in the business, for as long, like anything that's been coming out for like our local market, it just kind of goes against it.
That demonstrates something that's totally unrelated to this here, but it just shows you that it doesn't matter how long you've been in the business. Right. It doesn't matter. But like any agent that tells you I've been in the business this long, like there's plenty of businesses that don't do well and are in business for a long time. Mm-hmm. And what I walked out of that meeting with, because we've got hundreds of agents at our company, is that we are a lot more prepared than I realize sometimes. And I felt like even better about the direction things are going with what our team's doing. And I think that when you're interviewing an agent, and I wouldn't ask how long they've been in the business. I would be asking questions about, what are your strategies to win? Mm-hmm. What do you understand about the market? Because that's the stuff that matters. And if they're in, an agent can be very well versed and not have years of experience. Right. So I think that really shows that it's about competency more than length of career.
Right. Because you can certainly have an agent that's been doing this for 40 plus years and hasn't adjusted their strategy or stayed up with how things, what is most successful today. And like what matters if you're buying or selling a house right now is what is successful now.
Yeah, for sure. And it shows you just got to, the market's always changing. So it's something that you want to just stay on top of. I mean, it's not hard to keep up with the market. I mean, you read a couple articles a week, you listen to stuff like this. I mean, it's not that difficult.
And if you have the right support, and like even if you are a newer agent, if
Mhm.
you can prove to whoever you are basically interviewing with on either the purchase side or the sell side that you have the right support, and that, you know, don't lie and pretend that you've been doing this for way longer than you have been. But if you can show that you've got the resources and the ability to like work through any issue or figure anything out, there's also a level of like hunger there for newer people, I feel like, and they want these transactions to go through successfully, you know, like they need that.
Mhm. Well, you can tell when you're interviewing folks, and this is for all the consumers out there. You can tell when someone's like driven, right? You can't really coach that. That's not something that, like, you're either driven or you're not, right? And I think that's really how it goes. And you can understand that just by the way they speak to you and how they're guiding you through the process and their actions, right? How quick are they to respond? Do they give you direct advice, or are they just telling you what they think you want to hear? Because
Right.
anyone can kind of tell when they're getting placated a little bit. So that's great advice, Sarah. So, but it's a great point to talk about for consumers here. Just make sure you're asking questions, because you're going to know if the person knows what they're talking about or not after a 10, 15-minute conversation.
Mhm.
All right, so back to this Altos research article. So then the fifth thing they talked about here, I know we kind of jumped around, we didn't go through all five, is that we're approaching the end of the season, right? And I think the season is like the end of the year, at least in my view. Like once you get to November, December, that's when things kind of really starting back up fiscally for me. The real estate year basically starts like November 15th or Thanksgiving at the latest, because anything you sell, it's not going to count towards that year's production. So as we're getting close to that, we've got 3-4 months left here. We're seeing that homes on the market are priced at reasonably stable levels. The average list to sales price ratio that we see is hovering around 100% in the Philadelphia suburbs. It's closer to 96.5% in the city of Philadelphia. And what we've seen so far this year nationally is that 39.7% of the homes on the market have taken a price cut from the original list price. And that's up 30 basis points from the previous week. And this is consistent with supply, demand, and pricing indicators that we talked about, which, you know, kind of shows that the market's relatively stable. Now, again, this is a national number. What do you feel like you're seeing more homes make price adjustments? Do you think this has any indication of what's going to happen with our market here locally? Tell me more about that.
I think a lot of it comes down to the motivation of the seller and like the
Mhm.
timing that the seller needs, and kind of how other similar homes to theirs are doing. So if you need like, in order to line up with what you need to do, you need that home to sell, you are going to be less likely to sit around and wait for the right buyer to get there. You know, or to kind of like decide to make the offer. You're going to be more likely to do those price adjustments just to be like, all right, let's go. Like we're not messing around here. Then you've got other people who, even if it kind of makes sense market wise to do a price adjustment, they're not in a hurry. They want to hold out for that number. And, you know, we often talk about when there is a home that's been sitting on the market for a little bit, which now it's not like it has to be like it's been there for like months, you know, it can be like, hey, 3 weeks, like, they might be willing to go.
It's funny you say that. Last week, the median time to contract was 21 days.
Yeah.
So that's really great advice there. Keep going.
So, but you would think in a lot of those situations that you would call and they're like, yeah, we are thinking about doing a price adjustment, or we are, you know, write the offer at where your client would go in at, and we'll try and see if we can make it work. I've had some situations where the agent's like, no, you know, we're like, you're welcome to write it, but like, we're looking to hit this number, and we're willing to wait until the right one comes along. So you will sometimes see those situations where you have a home that had a lot of days on market, and then it goes to pending, goes to settlement, and they did in fact get the number they were waiting for. So they were holding out for it. But I mean, that's not saying that will always happen and that strategy will always work. But it really kind of comes down to how quickly, in my opinion, I think a lot of times it's how quick does the seller need to make this happen? And, you know, what do they need in order to move on and be like, all right, that's enough for me. Let's go.
So I tend to agree with you there. It comes down to their motivation and everything else. What we also know is you look at our market, we saw 8.1% of the active listings in Bright. They had a price adjustment last week. So you can see that we're in a bit of a stronger market than the rest of the country. I think the Northeast has been kind of insulated here because we didn't see that big pop during the pandemic, like places like Austin, Florida, Texas, Arizona, the Sun Belt states. A lot of people were moving down there. So there's all these things you want to acknowledge, and that there's even like it's important to realize that you can find a fair deal even in a market like this if you have someone that's giving you those indicators. So days on market, right? For the month ending in June, we don't have the July data yet. 12 days was the median days on market for the greater Philadelphia area. So like it sounds crazy saying that, but it's like, hey, look at homes that have been on the market 10, 15 days.
Yep.
And you wouldn't think that unless you're talking to a professional like Sarah or someone else that understands all that. So that's where you can go through this data as much as you want. And what we're seeing here, I'm pretty clear we're going to kind of see the same market here. And this reminds me a lot of 2019, where homes that are priced well, they're moving. Homes that are maybe a little off, depending on the price point, they might have to come down to accept an offer. I mean, we had a listing that launched over the weekend on our team, and we thought we priced it right on the money. It looks like it's going to sell maybe like 2-3% off the asking price, and it needed some work. That's a win for a seller.
Right.
You know, the days of, hey, I need 10% more,
Right.
that may be a little unrealistic. And we're not seeing, we are seeing demand wane a little bit, but this is a return to normalcy here, and all this data backs it up, which I think is really helpful from what Altos Research put together here.
And I mean, I think as a seller, the win isn't, oh, I got this much over the list price, because then maybe it wasn't, you know what I mean? It's, does this number make sense for the home, So, while it feels good as a seller to get way over the list price, it's getting the list price or getting right under the list price. If all of the pieces make sense, that's still a win.
Remember, when you sell a home, you got to sell it 3 times, Sarah. You know the sales. One is to the real estate agents to show it. The second is the buyer who's going to write up a contract that's acceptable to the seller. And the third is to the mortgage company so it appraises. And these are things that you want to, just because we're coming off a hot market, you can't skip that stuff with your seller, because when one of those issues does come up, mainly the third one, because that one can be the real monkey wrench here, the appraisal, if you didn't tell them about it, you don't look like you really prepared them for what's to come here.
Right.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got all kinds of news from the CFA. We've got a Michigan antitrust lawsuit being filed against NAR. We'll break it down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Shouldn't have to sacrifice great service just to get a great rate. At Mortgage America, we've been lending with this philosophy for 35 years. We have access to great low rates without the complications and delays of bigger online banks. We're a local Pennsylvania lender.
Said that I read it, but
you can actually beat. As PHFA's #1 lender, we specialize in
We're a good team on this, so I wouldn't really worry about it.
Including first-time buyer programs and low down payment options. For your free pre-approval, call us at 610-439-8000 or apply online at mymortgage.
I really need to read all these articles. You can skim through them and you talk about
The
it.
Tom Toole Sales Group is the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania with over 165
So you read the 15 pages,
volume
right?
for 2021. I'm Tom Toole, and our team has achieved that kind of success by being a great place to work with and to work for. No one knows Greater Philly better than we do. We know real estate, but more importantly, we're real people. We hire the best agents and we give them all the tools to succeed. Even our brand new agents sell 17 to 24 homes a year because our team delivers the best experience in real estate. Teams deliver a better experience than individuals, and we're a top 1% real estate team in the country. We call it AAA service. We're your advocate, ally, and advisor, because this isn't a transaction to us. It's a relationship. If you're buying or selling a home, call the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX main line at 610-692-6976 or visit tomtoole.com. That's Tom Toole with an E.
So these like local
Sell
like
your home for
influencers
more,
on
and remember
Instagram.
the real estate golden rule. You always
Remember we had the
get
sports
what you
blogger
want.
on?
Yeah.
So there's one dude that just told me about him. It's called like Fit Dad CEO. Apparently like lives in Wayne.
Oh,
Whether
really?
you have a license or not, call us
They're
today.
doing these like sandwich reviews. Like somebody sent it to me. I'm like, man, we should get this guy. He's
Or
got
visit
fun this
tomtoole.com.
year.
Join our team, the Tom Toole Sales Group at
He's got
RE/MAX main line.
like
For the best
nuts, like-
local
Wow.
mortgage service
And,
and great
so
rates on your
he did
money,
this in Havertown.
look no further than Mortgage America.
And that guy,
We've been
the guy
operating
Peter,
in the greater
knows this
Philadelphia
dude,
area
and, like, they hang out a
for
lot.
Oh, I
40
have
years.
seen-
Focus on
yeah.
smooth, easy
No, I'm
access to
kidding.
home
See if we can get
purchase.
them on the show.
Whether you're a first
These are much better guests than like
upsizing or
local
downsizing,
business
or
owners.
just
Like,
refinancing,
Yeah.
we have programs for you. We also have
I'm just thinking
closing
about that.
cost
Like, his
assistance
parents,
programs
I mean,
and access to
apparently,
subsidized
he's
interest
got to live right
rates.
around here, I guess. He lives in
Pre-approval
Wayne or
is free,
something.
no
Yeah.
costs or commitments. To learn more, visit
So,
our website at mymortgageamerica.com or give us a call at 610-439-8000. 10 seconds. Have a person available to take your call with around-the-clock human service. Purchase your home with the personalized local service you find at Mortgage America.
Mortgage America is MLS 12850.
Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Timon. We both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at RE/MAX Mainline, the #1 RE/MAX team in Pennsylvania since 2018. And we are streaming live on YouTube here. We're going to be talking about the CFA. If you don't know what the CFA is, it's the Consumer Federation of America, urging buyers and sellers to negotiate commissions, but they've got some peculiar recommendations here that kind of go against this whole lawsuit. We're also going to break down this Michigan antitrust suit against NAR and the new Zillow CEO. So if you get some value out of this, you'll like what you hear, make sure to hit subscribe to the channel, the bell for notifications. And if you want to talk about how this affects your real estate decisions moving forward, we've got you covered. You can schedule a link with our team and Sarah specifically with the link in the comments. So where do you want to start here? I mean, the CFA stuff is pretty interesting. This dropped last week, so that might be the more appropriate thing to do. This came out right after the show last week. So the CFA, the Consumer Federation of America, they published a consumer alert on new realtor rules. Am I pronouncing realtor right, by the way? I get destroyed all the time. People are like, oh, this guy's an idiot. I guess I say realtor, and it's realtor, so I need to work on this. You would not believe the amount of hatred that I get for good thing I don't get paid to pronounce things, Sarah, right? I mean, you're laughing. I'll show you this after the show. So so these new realtor rules and practices that are going into effect mid-August. So here's the 3 suggestions. Tell me what you think of all these. I'm going to give them all at once.
Okay.
1, select a competent, trustworthy agent. 2, read contracts carefully. And 3, discuss and negotiate commission in dollar amounts, not percentages. And in their sub-recommendation, when they said negotiate agent compensation, they said discuss and negotiate commissions in dollar amounts and aim for an equivalent amount to 2% or less of the home sale price. Now, before I get your reaction here, we can't talk about fees.
Mhm.
It's an antitrust conversation. What do you think about what the CFA is recommending here?
Well, I like their first 2, the selecting a competent, trustworthy agent. I mean, I think that's whether or not there were any changes going through.
Sure.
That seems like a smart thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Read contracts carefully. Yes, like if you're signing them, ultimately you are responsible for them. So you can ask all of the questions, and then this kind of maybe you don't find out if your agent is in fact competent and trustworthy until after you read the contracts and see if what they told you is actually what it says and what it means. But when you're signing these contracts, I mean, you can ask all of the questions and an agent can give you answers. But if it was not explained to you properly and you sign it, you still did sign that contract. Now, could you, go back and, try to, come back after the fact or go to mediation or do whatever? Certainly, especially if you have it in, things that conflict with what's in that contract in writing. But ultimately, if you are signing a contract, you are responsible for that contract. And that's just as not just in real estate, like in anything. If you're signing the contract, you signed it,
There's a problem with people that don't read things. I mean, that goes 2 ways. One, on the consumer, to your point. Also, you want to make sure they're understanding it. And I mean, I've taken the time where we were at an appointment last night. I got home at like 9:30. I was exhausted. And the people were like, literally, like, you're killing me with all these documents here. I said, I hear you. I've got a job to do and I got to explain this stuff. And in light of what's going on, I mean, there's just some people that are like, just sign here. It's fine. So I do agree with you that it's a problem in some cases.
Right. And I do also, I agree that it goes, but like, it shouldn't all just fall to one side. Like if you are asking somebody to sign it, you should make sure you know what they're signing so that you can, you can explain that properly and then not have it come back with like, hey, that doesn't sound like what you had told me. The discuss and negotiate commissions in dollar amounts, not percentages. That's interesting. I guess I'm wondering if it would be like certain dollar amounts for certain actions done and completed, or only upon like successful actions completed, or because there's like a lot that goes into the back end of stuff that like, I guess you could call billable hours if you're going to do it this way, So, depending on how you structure that, I think that ultimately you may end up paying more. I don't know. That's an interesting one.
I'll tell you the issue I have with this is that they're saying aim for a certain fee. That sounds like price fixing, which is what the NAR has been accused of. And if you look up the definition of price fixing, I want to just read this off to everybody here, because we talked about this on Knowledge Brokers, and there was someone saying that's not what price fixing is. It occurs when there is an agreement reached, written, oral, or inferred from conduct with the purpose and effect of raising, lowering, or stabilizing prices for services and products. That sounds like exactly what they're doing here. And this person, I mean, it was on, you can go look it up on my Instagram page, and they're like, that's not what it is. I'm like, you got to understand what's going on here. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't negotiate. That's not what I'm saying here. But when you say target this fee, well, that sounds like stabilizing prices. And when you look at attorneys, right? There's good attorneys that charge a whole bunch of money, and there's some attorneys you can get for like a bargain basement price, right? The same thing with an accountant. I mean, you get a good accountant, like that can help. And then you get an accountant that says, hey, I'll charge you, a lot less. Well, maybe your tax return's not going to be prepared as well as it could be. This goes for any profession. And there are tons of professions that get paid on a percentage, right? Sports agents get paid on a percentage. Paul George just signed that big deal with the Sixers, right? He signed it. He gets paid on the percentage. His agent gets paid that way because he wants to make sure the contract's going to be properly done.
Right.
So that to me is a problem here, and that's coming from a government organization. I love the transparency they're talking about, but the fact that they're saying this, it's kind of ridiculous.
Right. No, I agree. I'm just trying to think here too, if like, what would that even look like? If so, I guess this is just saying you're negotiating it out in $1. Well, that is what it's saying, and not a percentage, but it would be, I could see how your price could quickly well exceed whatever the percentage number is. If you like set it that way, if you were to set it up for basically like billable hours for actions done, all the calls that you make, all of, even if like if you're on the sell side, all of the responses that you give to all the people that don't end up actually being the offer that goes through, like paying for that. All of like the comps and back end research that you're doing, all the time that you spend, not just like talking to other agents, but like if any issues come up or anything needs to be resolved, and you're talking to townships, or you're talking to, and then if you go beyond that, even just talking with like your inner office communications for making sure that certain things are set up certain ways, and that like, you could very quickly go well above if you did it like charging for actions, which I know that that's not exactly what this is saying. They're saying just pick a number versus a percentage.
Well, and there are flat fee brokers out there that just get homes on the MLS for a few $100s, and they provide no value. And I mean, and oftentimes they get in the way of the transaction. So, I mean, it's, there's plenty of businesses that work off percentages, and, it's up to the consumer to decide to keep their life continuing to operate the way it is. And that's why they have an expert guiding them than getting in the weeds. I mean, if so the fact that they're recommending, hey, here's the number to charge, which again, I said at the very beginning of this, we can't talk about those things because that can be an illegal antitrust conversation. Now you've got a government, supposedly a watchdog agency saying this. They're supposed to be looking out for people. It's wild to me that that's even happening. So it's just this whole thing is incredible. So with that in mind, there's another part to this here, and then we can unpack all of it. So then today, I saw this news come across my desk. There are 3 Michigan real estate professionals that filed a class action antitrust lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors and the Michigan Association of Realtors, RealComp 2, and several local boards. And they challenged the mandatory membership requirements, specifically citing MLS access as a violation of their rights under antitrust lawsuits. So we got more antitrust stuff. What do you think about this lawsuit?
I mean, it's going to be hard to keep up with all of them.
Yeah, there's a lot of lawsuits.
So, all right. So to break this down, the Michigan agents and brokers are suing NAR and going after the MLS, saying it's antitrust that they have to use them.
Yeah, so they're saying that they argue the requirement for brokers and agents to join NAR, which is the Michigan Association of Realtors, and local associations to access the MLS is a violation of their rights under antitrust laws.
So I mean, like, I kind of get where they're coming from, but they're using the service that is provided. And I do like that there is like basically a one streamlined place to like hold information. Like if it was something that you weren't required to, like if you had to look on like 30 different sites to even find out if a home is like to get information on it, to even find out like if it's
well, I don't think that's what they're saying.
Okay.
I think the MLS, because there's other places you don't have to be a realtor to access the MLS. So what they're talking about is you got to join all these boards just to get MLS access. So it's not like you're just, because we get billed for the MLS.
Yeah.
Then we get the annual realtor dues that come through. So it's like $700 for those. The MLS is like $175 or like $195 a quarter or something like that. So all in, you're like talking about $1,500. Knowing the average agent makes about like $35,000 a year, they're saying, well, maybe I can save $1,000 or save that $700. That's what this is about.
because they're saying like joining these sites is not doing anything for me like professionally.
Well, they have to be a member of the board in order to get the MLS access,
Yeah.
and just being able to just choose MLS access only.
Right. I don't know. I mean, it would be nice not to have to pay all those fees, but
Well, I tend to agree with this. I mean, part of it's driven from the recent changes from the NAR settlement, and this case that we're talking about all the time. And you know, the plaintiffs are saying that this change that that prohibits offers of compensation on the MLS greatly diminished any value created by the compulsory membership requirement in their organizations, and there's now no guarantee of broker compensation associated with the MLS, which is factual. That is
before,
actually,
like if it was listed on there, that
was a binding thing. So, I mean, I think that's kind of, to me, that's the crux of this whole case in the first place, because if you didn't have to be a member of NAR to access the MLS, then it would be a little different, or your local board or whatever else. And the MLS was even named Michigan's largest MLS provider. It's RealComp 2. So I mean, and now they're seeking class action status. So there's going to be another one of these lawsuits happening. And if you think there's not other agents watching this,
right,
this is the next domino to fall here. And it doesn't put NAR in a good spot, because if people start filing these, imagine there's 50 of these that come out, right? All 50 states. So Massachusetts, I know you don't have to be a member of NAR to get MLS access, but let's say there were others, like there's many other states. I don't know all of them inside and out. NAR's in a lot of trouble here. This is not good news.
Well, I feel like they're just going to be so flooded with so many different things. They're never going to get anything done ever again. It's just like too many things coming at them.
I don't know how NAR is going to come back from all this, because they're just, I mean, it's now they've got their membership turning on them, right? They've already gotten attacked and lost in a really poor defense. We've talked about that at length. This is a problem. And now you got the CFA. I mean, everyone's got their sights on NAR and real estate agents right now. It's not a good time. I mean, and you know, that's where it's so important. If you're an agent listening to all this, you got to focus on what matters in your business. And that's what we talked about the meeting we had last week, right? You know, the big theme at the end was, hey, great, we can keep talking about all these forms and everything else. You know what's most important? Talking to people who need to buy and sell real estate and trying to help them.
Right.
And when you focus on that and you focus on your business, it's going to go a lot further. So how do you, has all this stuff, I mean, besides the new forms, like we know we got to get some forms signed and all that, have you changed your day-to-day at all, Sarah, with all this noise in the marketplace?
No.
Well, tell us more. I like how clear your answers are, by the way. It just makes it so much easier to talk to somebody. You're very direct.
Yeah. So a lot of this stuff has been in the background, and we've been, talking about the changes were going to be upcoming for quite a while. In terms of my day to day, like it doesn't really change any of the like activities or behaviors that you do. There would be a tweaking of a conversation and like some other things you have to implement leading up. But it's one conversation amongst many other conversations that you have with your clients. So important to have it, especially now that we are very quickly approaching the deadline for when all of this needs to be done. But I think if you can explain it properly, it doesn't need to change your day to day, I guess.
I agree with you.
Right?
I got a 3-point plan for you here. You want to hear this? This is like going to blow your mind. So knowing that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to get thrown for a loop by all these changes. I mean, we're already seeing it, right? I mean, you were at that meeting we had last week, inside and outside our organization. Here's the 3-point plan. Keep making contacts and setting appointments. That's point number 1. Number 2, master explaining all the new docs. You mentioned that. Number 3, don't deviate from 1 and 2.
Right.
Just keep going. And it may sound simpler than it is. You're going to get new objections. You're going to get new questions. Objections aren't, hey, I'm not going to stop transacting. It's, hey, I want to move, but I got questions about this.
Right.
I want to buy a home. I've got some questions. Can you clarify these things for me?
Well, and I mean, I think what you're going to have to get good at it because you can't show homes if they don't sign it. So,
yes.
One way or another, you're going to have to either like figure out how to explain it or you're not going to be able to show homes. And it's something that is, whether you talk to me, somebody on my team, or any other agent, it is a requirement. So it's kind of nice that it applies to everybody. It's not like it's just like, oh no, just I'm making you do this. Like everybody has to. So, it's across the board.
There's not an option to skirt this, and there will be people that try to get around this. Right. I know you're not one of them. I'm sure as hell not one of them. Our team's not going to be doing that, but there will be people, just like during COVID. Remember, we weren't supposed to meet people, and all of a sudden these like showings would pop up on your listing, and it's like, well, how are you showing the house if this is happening? So the reality is that the business plan that you came up with at the beginning of the year, or hopefully you're following it, you've looked at it, don't change the plan. I would maybe double or triple down on the plan right now. And then you've got a time block. Hey, I need to learn these things. I need to understand all this. I need to read through these documents. The Pennsylvania documents, we're pretty lucky to have those. I don't think they're that complicated. I mean, you've read through them. I mean, I don't think there's anything in there that's like, wow, this is life-changing. I mean, we had a listing appointment last night. The question came up. We're getting ready to sign. Hey, so tell me what's going on with compensation and how this all works. And I said, great. And here's our options. Yeah. Here's what it means. We explained the contract and the response was great. We still want to move. This sounds good to us. And that's, if you can't do that, you've got to spend time practicing this stuff, right? You've been in the business a while. You're on our role play call practicing this. Like you're at all the trainings. Yeah. You're not cutting corners here. And I think that's a tribute to you. And that's what a good agent should be doing.
Well, and I think and I don't know if other states have this, but what's nice about ours, and in like those PDFs that we got the other week that actually highlight what the changes are, it makes it really easy to see what's different from what the previous was. And while the marked up ones, they say sample on them and they have the changes, you can show that to your clients and say like, hey, this is what's different. And it's highlighted right in red, and it makes it, I feel like it takes a little bit of the stress out of it because it's not like looking through a whole contract for like, what else might be different in here or what's hidden in here. Like, hey, these are the changes.
The more transparent you are, the better. Yeah. And there's going to be people that defend all this stuff. And we've talked about this. And really, we just got to educate consumers. Hey, this is a new change. Every real estate agent has to follow this that's a member of NAR.
Right. And I mean, it's not like this is what's going on in our industry right now. Other industries have changes all the time that need to be kept up with. And while this is one that has like really hit the news, even within our industry, there are changes that have occurred over time that you just have to be on top of it. Like change happens, and that's normal.
I think that's a great point. If you look at the accounting industry, and this happened in 2002, I was in college as an accounting major. This was a big deal, and it was the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. I don't know if you remember this. What'd you go to school for?
Business and then sociology.
Okay, so and this was accounting specific. So I think that's why. I mean, I was an accounting major, and basically what happened was there was a lot of large companies that were cooking their books and like making accounting decisions that made them appeal to investors and different things. I mean, you talk about like Enron, right? Like they renamed the Houston Astros Stadium. Remember, it was Enron Field, and they had to rename it, right? WorldCom was another one because there was all these scandals that happened, and I don't think anything that crazy as a scandal happened in real estate. I'm pretty clear it hasn't. But that was what happened. And they have all these new regulations that got put in place. So every accountant had to follow those things. I don't think this is any different. The good news here is that good agents have been practicing and are probably doing a lot of the stuff that we're talking about already. It's the people that weren't doing it that kind of got us into the situation in the first place.
Right. Because like none of the changes are scary or like bad, or I mean, like some of them are going to be a little bit annoying.
Yeah.
But
the transition has been tough, getting new contracts signed and making
Right.
sure those notices are out there. But that happened during COVID-19. It wasn't that different.
Right. And then I have zero issues with the piece of the changes here where you have to have the buyer agency contract. Totally fine with that. With whatever changes they made to the contract, cool. The one that is just going to be until a better system is kind of figured out, like in this interim for finding out what the agency comp will be, or is there one, in a timely manner to be able to get that information to your clients prior to a showing. Like eventually, like, it's because you want to be able to tell them that before they go in. But
yeah,
we'll figure it out.
That makes me nervous because it's out of our control.
Right.
And I know like the steps we've taken, like we have a dedicated website that is not attached to anything. It's only there to communicate this. We have a phone number that's only there to communicate this. It's literally by the book with the NAR settlement. Most people aren't doing that stuff. I mean, and we're going to have agents that don't even pick up their cell phone and like that. And you get a hot listing, right? You've had some listings where you get 20, 30, 40 showings. These people get so overwhelmed, they can't even return calls.
Right.
So that's where, and if I'm a seller, I'm asking people, hey, what's your system to communicate this? What are you doing to make this easy so that our listing isn't going to suffer from lack of exposure if the seller chooses to compensate a buyer agent? Because that's their option, right? So that's a question that I'd be asking if I'm a seller right now. That's a really good thing to be bringing up. I think that's going to be the toughest part of this, Sarah. You're absolutely right. So what do you think if it's going to happen with this lawsuit? I think these Michigan agents might win.
I think if they do, we're going to see a lot more, but it's also going to take a long time, I feel like, for
a lot more what?
A lot more lawsuits.
Oh, yes. Okay. All right. I just want to be clear. I agree with you. They have a case here because there's other states that don't do this. And the forced, hey, you got to be part of this to get this.
Yeah.
Just like what we talked about the CFAs doing, they're all related here. So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We've got a new Zillow CEO. I was surprised by this. And this was kind of out of right field. It got announced last week. We'll break it all down next on Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM.
Red tape when getting your mortgage from a big or online bank. At Mortgage America, we have access to big bank money, but with the personalized and detailed service of a local bank. We are here in your community and ready to serve with fast settlements, low down payment options, and first-time homebuyer programs.
I had to take Louis to the vet this
Pre-approval
morning.
is free, no cost
okay.
or commitment.
Yes, he has like allergies.
Visit our website at mymortgageamerica.com.
And Eric was doing this like
Give us a call
apple
at
cider vinegar
610-439-8000.
solution in his ear because like he kept scratching it, and we were hoping it would go away, but it like wasn't kicking in, so I had to take him in. $433 for like
20 minutes in
spent on
those
area. I have
our
a
dogs,
special
they have all
offer
those health
for you.
issues. It's like
Our team did
Yeah.
$165 million
one had like
of
3
volume in
surgeries. Like, oh, he
2021,
died. I mean,
making
but
us
it was
the
like
number one RE/MAX team in
think of, like,
Pennsylvania and a top
cut open
1%
this
team
like soft
nationally.
count. I'm like,
Our
I didn't sign up
agents
for this
love
book.
us because we offer them a
Yeah.
successful
Yeah.
career, a
You're
great
coming from
life,
shore
and
and
an
like, they keep,
unbeatable
like our
culture.
window was like panicking.
Agents who've
Like
been
the
with
new
us
one
for at
and
least a year average
wags,
30
and I'm
plus
like,
sales.
you'll be okay.
Even our
And like
brand new
he laid on the
agents
floor
average
for 2
7
hours
to
and I think he just got
24
overheated,
sales
but it was like
with
Yeah.
proven systems
Not
and
good.
expert training.
Yeah.
We help
I
you
know,
set
we're
more
going
appointments
to-
and sell more houses. Now, here's the
Oh my
offer.
God, I know. Yeah.
If you don't have a real
Well,
estate license yet, we
Ruby's
offer
leaving
real
tonight
estate
with my
scholarships so
in-laws
you can
for
get
like
one
a
for
week
free.
because we're going to
Check it
Long
out
Beach
at
Island for like the weekend.
realestatescholarshiprogram.com.
And it just didn't make sense to like
Or visit the Tom
figure
Toole
out another
sales
time
group
to
at
like meet
Remax
them.
Mainline
But
at
so I was like,
tomtoole.com.
I gotta get them in before.
Have you been to LBI?
Toole with an E,
Is that nice?
Yes, we were there.
Get more out of
once
your
last
real
week. Yeah, it was
estate
nice.
career. And
I
remember,
feel like
the
I
real estate
wish
goals
there was a little more
you
doing, I
always
should
get
say, like
more
something I
when you
don't
work
like
with
about,
Tom
like,
Toole.
When you're getting a
It's just like a
mortgage,
restaurant you go
shouldn't
to,
have
look like you
sacrifice
think it's
great
not
service
right,
just to
like,
get a great rate.
Yeah.
And Mortgage
it's not
America,
off the
we've
island.
been lending with
Right,
this philosophy
right.
for 35
Yeah.
Apparently there's a
years. We have
supper club
access
down
to
there. My
great
friends
low
told me
rates
about
without
that.
Oh, yeah.
complications and delays of bigger
It's where the
online
old
banks.
Chatterbox used to be.
We're a
Remember that place?
And
And they
the
have like a
people-
mixologist and stuff in there.
Yeah, I think that I think Eric's aunt like did that because she has like a house there.
Low down payment options. For your free pre-approval,
Should be a good weekend. We're leaving.
610-439-8000.
Thursday morning to go down. It's like the last hurrah.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to Toole Time Real Estate Radio on WWDB 860 AM. I'm Tom Toole. She's Sarah Time, and we both work at the Tom Toole Sales Group at Remax Mainline, the #1 Remax team in Pennsylvania since 2018. Did you know there's another Remax team parading around as #1? Xander from our team sent this to me. I'm not going to say who it is, but he's like, "Is this true?" And I'm like, "Yes." I mean, it shocked me that this was happening, but
Right.
he was like, I think he was really upset about it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Don't worry, man, we
I
got
I
you."
was on the #1 team.
Well, I mean, when you say that stuff, we say it for a reason because we're helping a lot of people. But
Right.
I'll tell you who it is afterwards. We're not going to do that on air. So we're going to talk about the new Zillow CEO here. I found this very fascinating that this happened at this certain time. I want to get your take on this in a second. If you get some value out of this, you like what you hear, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. And if you want to schedule a call with our team, talk about your real estate needs or maybe your real estate career, you can do that with the link in the comments to connect with myself or Sarah. So last week, Jeremy Waxman, the former COO of Zillow, was announced that he got promoted to the CEO, and Rich Barton took a step back after his second stint as CEO with the company. Here's Rich Barton's comment. Zillow's business is firing on all cylinders and performing well through a challenging real estate macro. We've built and integrated products, completed strategic acquisitions, enhanced our agent partner network, and leaned in hard to our mortgage and rental businesses. This is due in no small part to the leadership of Jeremy Waxman, with the past 3 years being a time of particularly impressive innovation for the company. Lloyd's the co-founder, could not be more confident in Jeremy as CEO and the caliber of the broader team and in Zillow's bright future. So I know you don't follow this as closely as I do, Sarah. Were you surprised there's a new CEO coming into Zillow?
Well, how long was Rich Bartman the CEO?
So this is his second stint, and it was 5 years. So he was the CEO, then he backed off, and they had Spencer Raskoff,
right.
And who's now going on to found multiple other companies. And then Rich came back in, and that was the past 5 years. And now we're here with Jeremy Waxman.
And I guess when he came back for the second time, was it always as like until we find the next person, or that wasn't really said? It was just like, I'm back.
It was interesting. I mean, I've met Spencer once, and I know the former president, obviously, of Zillow, Greg Schwartz. And it was interesting that he came back in because I think that's when Zillow's business shifted, right? So it used to be, and this is before you got into real estate, but it used to be that you would buy like impressions from Zillow, right? You would spend a certain amount of money and then you had to build your profile, and then the lead flow would be based on what you can actually generate.
Okay.
Then they moved to the Premier Agent model where they did the live phone call connection, which you're used to, right? And they when that happened, that's when Rich Barton had kind of come back into the business. Then they went to Flex, right? And we were the first Flex partner in the greater Philadelphia area. That was in 2020, so it was 4 years ago. So that was right after Rich Barton came back, and then now you've got Jeremy Waxman here. Do you think this has anything to do with the settlement being enacted? I mean, this is like 10 days before they name a new CEO.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the timing of it would be strange if it didn't have something to do with it. There's a lot of changes going on, so like I don't know why you would just throw that in the mix if it wasn't like a plan.
Yeah, it was. The whole thing was the timing was suspicious, right? And I don't know that. Look, we're very grateful for our partnership with Zillow. We're very pro Zillow here. I think it's helped a lot of people on our team get their business going and continuing to help people sell houses. I want to be very clear about that. I look at this in a couple ways. One, I think there's a lesson to be learned about leadership, that if you're not developing leaders within your company, you're doing yourself a disservice. I mean, you've seen how we've made a transition from someone within the company that I think we're doing a heck of a lot. I mean, we're having what's going to be the best year that we've ever had, with Brian Blauka, our sales manager, kind of leading the sales team and the onboarding and different things that has really worked out well for our organization. But we developed him and he kind of saw how we worked and it went that way. So I think there's something to be said for that. I think that's a good move on Zillow's part there. And that's a lesson for a lot of the leaders that are out there. Rich Barton said there's no new job. He's not selling stock. He's not doing anything else. It just looks like he's going to be in the background, and kind of step back a little bit here. Maybe he just wants to get out of the day to day.
How old is he?
He's, I don't know. I mean, I've met him once. He's very tall, but I'm guessing he's late 50s. Let's see what he's got here. This will be very interesting. Let's look up on Wikipedia. Born in 1967. So what's that? 57. All right, I was right on the money. So that was kind of my guess. So I think there's that. Now, the other, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes at Zillow. Jeremy could have very well been running the company at a high level and just kind of taking a step in as they developed him. I don't really know what the answer is here. That wasn't the most interesting part of this. Zillow said, and Rich Barton said, we are absolutely not in the business of selling buyer leads during the topic. What do you think about that?
What?
Yeah, I don't know how you can say that with a straight face. That was my takeaway from this here. So, congrats to Jeremy, but Zillow's kidding themselves if they're saying they don't sell buyer leads. They get paid on a referral fee. They now sell leads on their website. Totally disagree with that.
Exactly what they do.
Even though they partner with agents, and that's really their customer here more than the buyer.
Right.
All right. That's what we got this week. Good luck, Jeremy. Hope you have a great run as Zillow's CEO. If you want to follow Sarah, she's at Ty_Ty Time on Instagram. You can follow me at Tom Toole 3RD. We're streaming live every week. If you got some value out of this, do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and we can always get in touch with our team with the link in the comments. Catch you next week on WWDB 860 AM.